The prize for what we're doing is huge, not just financially, but from an impact perspective. There may be nothing on the planet more impactful than us commercializing fusion and putting virtually limitless clean energy on the grid around the world.
Welcome to Sustainability Leaders. I'm Michael Torrance, Chief Sustainability Officer at BMO. On this show, we will talk with leading sustainability practitioners from the corporate, investor, academic, and NGO communities to explore how this rapidly evolving field of sustainability is impacting global investment, business practices, and our world.
The views expressed here are those of the participants and not those of Bank of Montreal, its affiliates, or subsidiaries.
Hi, I am Jayen Veerapen, Senior Advisor at BMO Climate Institute. The late physicist Stephen Hawking once stated, "I would like nuclear fission to become a practical power source. It would be an inexhaustible supply of energy without pollution." How is this possible? Today's guest, Greg Twinney, joined the company General Fusion in 2020 as its CFO, and since then has shifted to CEO. In this role, he's charged with helping General Fusion commercial fusion technology for the world. Today, he will help us understand the state of fusion technology and why it's been hailed as a potential solution to some of our most pressing energy challenges. Greg, thank you so much for being here today.
Jayen, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start out with a question about fusion itself. To begin with, fusion happens every day, and it's been so for millions of years. That's the reaction that powers the sun. Could you please, Greg, briefly explain to us how fusion generates energy?
That's a good question. And, you're right. Fusion is the process that powers the sun and the stars. Here's how it works. When you have two hydrogen atoms, specifically deuterium and tritium, and you force them together at extremely high temperatures and pressures, they fuse together into a heavier atom, helium. In that moment, a small amount of their mass actually is converted directly into energy. And even that tiny amount of mass releases huge amounts of energy, mostly carried through this high-speed neutron that is created through the process. So what that means is that you're able to create and unlock energy through the fusion of these atoms in a way that basically creates the most dense form of energy known to mankind.
So as you mentioned, fusion is coming together, but can you please explain to our audience how fusion is different from fission, which is the technology in our reactors currently?
Yeah. The fusion is actually the opposite of fission. Fission splits heavy atoms, producing long-lived radioactive waste and posing the risks associated with that, meltdowns, run-ons, catastrophic problems that you'd remember when you think about fusion accidents. Fusion, doing the opposite, is joining light atoms or fusing them together, specifically hydrogen, and it's producing helium and energy. So there's no high-level waste and no meltdown risk. In fact, the radiation levels are so low that they're comparable to a hospital working with medical isotopes for cancer treatments. It's sort of like all the benefits of traditional nuclear energy, fission, without all the baggage and risk.
So why did Professor Hawking refer to fusion as both inexhaustible and clean supply of energy?
I think it was said that because it's based on the most abundant fuel in the universe, hydrogen. One of our fuels, deuterium, is found in seawater. A single bathtub of water contains enough deuterium to power a person's entire lifetime. The other fuel, tritium, that we fuse with it, we produce ourselves using the fusion reaction. So it's the fuel cycle is actually closed and self-sustaining. And it's also clean. Fusion produces no carbon emissions, no air pollution, and no long-lived radioactive waste. The only byproduct is helium, a harmless inert gas. So, you're not relying on the weather. You're not needing batteries. You don't have the geopolitical risk of needing to have special access to specific fuels. And so if we get fusion right, it gives us a global solution to climate and energy security for centuries. I think that's what Hawking meant, and it's what drives us every day.
Indeed, a very attractive energy solution. So man-made fusion has been talked about for a number of years now. In fact, I think the first fusion reactors were built in the 1950s. And in your view, what are the main achievements over the past 70 plus years?
That's correct. Fusion has been worked on for many decades, but over those decades, fusion has gone from a scientific dream to an engineering challenge. In 2022, the National Ignition Facility in the US achieved ignition using lasers. And this is the most recent example of proving a form of net fusion energy is actually possible. But the real story is going to come from taking results like that and turning it into commercial power plants. Our approach, called magnetic target fusion, was conceived in the 1970s. It's an idea ahead of its time back then. But now, with advances in plasma physics, high performance computing, and material science, magnetized target fusion, our unique approach to fusion, is actually ready to be demonstrated.
Seems there has been a lot of progress on your side, Greg. Can you tell us a little bit more how general fusion is progressing towards achieving a commercially viable fusion reactor? Because one of the challenges with fusion is achieving net power fusion reactor, meaning a fusion reactor that generates more power than it consumes. So can you tell us a little bit more how general fusion is progressing towards achieving this commercial reactor?
Sure, yeah. So we're preparing to bring MTF energy to market by the early to mid 2030s. I'm confident that we can hit that date for a few reasons, but the first is being the very nature of our magnetized target fusion approach. From inception, our approach was designed to scale for cost-efficient power plants by sidestepping 4 pitfalls or barriers of other approaches. Those 4 barriers are machine durability, fuel production, energy conversion, and commercial economics. We're not talking about physics and science here. We're talking about running commercial power plants. And so achieving net energy in a scientific machine is a good start. But if you can't overcome these 4 barriers of having a durable machine, producing your own fuel, converting the energy, doing all that in a way that's economical, you don't have a power plant. So as a result, our machine was designed to overcome those barriers right from the start. And as you can imagine, when you're creating the conditions of the sun inside of a machine, there are lots of challenges. One, you need to be able to protect the machine from getting destroyed from high energy neutrons smashing against that machine if you're going to run it for more than what's required for a science demonstration, but what is required for a commercial power plant. So you need to protect the machine. You need to be able to produce fuel. So small amounts of fuel for science projects can be costly, but to run a fusion power plant and have the deuterium and tritium that you're fusing together available, abundant, and sustainable, you need to be able to produce your own fuel. That's a critical component. And you need to be able to capture the energy, the heat, the high energy neutron that's coming out of the reaction. You need to be able to capture that and turn it into useful power. And of course, doing all that at a cost that's going to be competitive with other technologies. And you can't do that if you're using superconducting magnets, high-powered lasers, or requiring some new and exotic materials that are so incredibly expensive that you can't be scaled up in any meaningful way. So for us, when we create fusion conditions, we actually create them inside our machine, but inside our machine is a liquid metal wall. A thick liquid metal wall surrounds the fusion reaction when we make it happen, and we do it on a pulsed basis, kind of like a diesel engine. We're compressing the fuel down, which increases the temperature, increases the density, and creates fusion conditions. And when fusion happens in our machine, it's happening inside a liquid metal vessel. So the fusion reaction is completely surrounded by liquid metal. What that means is the machine is protected. It means that we can use the heat and the high energy neutron from the fusion reaction and capture it in the liquid metal and put that energy to work. And the interaction between the fusion reaction and the liquid metal actually creates tritium, the source of the fuel or part of the fuel. It allows us to avoid needing superconducting magnets, lasers, exotic materials. So this liquid metal wall, which is completely surrounding fusion, is unique to us and critical to turning a fusion machine from a science demonstration into a commercial power plant, and very unique to us at General Fusion.
So is it fair to say that on the research and development side, I don't want to appear too simplistic, but is it fair to say that on the research and development side, general fusion is transitioning more into engineering and scale up of its technology and building a commercial size machine? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for us, we are focused on demonstrating scientific results using our approach, magnetized target fusion. And that's going to happen over the next, between now and 2027. We'll be working on achieving those milestones that I talked about, which include scientific break-even equivalent. So conditions of fusion and plasma inside our machine that would result in more energy out than in. So we're focused on that scientific achievement ourselves. However, the design of our technology and power plan allows us to move from those milestones and scale them up in an economic and commercially viable way. When you think about what's happened in the industry using lasers to create fusion, using these large research machines, they're machines called tokamaks and stellarators that have been worked on for many, many decades and produce fusion conditions and definitely can produce fusion. But the difference between how we're approaching it and those other approaches is that we have started with an end in mind that is for a commercial power plant and worked backwards from there, rather than starting from an approach that was born inside a lab or academia that was really designed just to create fusion for research purposes, not to do it 24/7, economical, durable, producing its own fuel. So rather than trying to convert a lab machine into a power plant, we started with a power plant and we've been proving out the technologies that will be needed for that power plant over the last 2 decades. It's kind of starting with the end in mind, a bit of a different approach.
So, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more precisely about your company, General Fusion. When was the company founded? Where are you based? Just so that our audience understands a little bit where General Fusion is and what General Fusion is actually.
Yeah. So General Fusion, we're a Canadian company. We're based in Vancouver. We've been around for 20 years, quietly and steadily building towards this moment. We've developed 24 plasma injectors where we do fusion every day. We formed 200,000 or more plasmas inside of our labs, and some of them at very large scale. We've done a lot of compression tests, which are part of the process for us. We've done over 1,000 of those, I believe, and counting. And we have published dozens of peer-reviewed papers and hold nearly 200 patents. So an enormous amount of IP built up over the last 20 years inside our labs with our own efforts and working with a lot of partners. But as I was talking about earlier, what makes us different is that we're not just proving physics. We are engineering real power plant, and we are focused on having energy come from fusion and put on the grid in an economical basis, and that can be scaled up globally. Our approach avoids the extreme cost and complexity of superconducting magnets and lasers that a lot of the other approaches are really focused and reliant upon. We use a pulsed system. It works a lot like a traditional diesel engine, producing steam for electricity. So using traditional balance of plant as well. It's a huge advantage in terms of scalability and economics. Our founder started this company with a vision 20 plus years ago and was only the second company in the world that was a fusion company. And 20 years later, we are actually breaking through, leading the pack globally, and see the next 10 years as us moving way ahead of the pack as we demonstrate our approach and then move into large scale deployment in the mid 2030s with energy on the grid.
As we all know, capital is key in delivering on your business objectives. Like every other fusion company on the planet, you are pre-revenue, so you need to raise capital from external sources in order to achieve your business objectives. Could you update us on how the company is doing on raising capital?
So we've raised about $350 million so far and done a lot with that capital. We've got to the position now where we are on the cusp of some incredible breakthrough milestones with a machine that we just built called LM26. It's a large-scale demonstration of our technology that is designed to recalibrate how the world views the timeline, the capital needed, and the approach for putting commercial fusion on the grid. In about a year and a half, we conceived, designed, engineered, built, and started operating this machine called LM26. And just this year, February 14th, actually, we achieved our first plasma in the machine, which is a big deal in the industry. But that's not the end milestone. What that means is we've created plasmas in the machine, and our next step is to compress those. And we did that as well. At the end of April, we compressed our first plasma at 50% power plant scale inside this machine. That is a really big deal. The next milestones for us are all about continuing to do shots with that machine, creating the plasma, compressing them, and over time, over the course of several shots, we hope to continue to increase the temperatures of those plasma to temperatures such as 10 million degrees, 100 million degrees, which is what's required for a commercial power plant, and ultimately taking it even a step further, increasing the density at those temperatures and getting to scientific break-even conditions. Those are the conditions where we would get equal amount of energy out of the reaction as it took to create it, which would be a massive, massive milestone, not just for us, but also for the industry. We'd be the only machine on the planet at that time that will have demonstrated that milestone in a way that is commercially relevant, that can translate to power plants on the grid. We've built the race car, we've got the machine ready to go, and it's capital that fuels the next milestones for us, and we need that through investment. Today's funding landscape is becoming more challenging than ever, actually, as investors and governments are trying to navigate through a lot of uncertainty, and geopolitical uncertainty is a big piece of that. We're competing against national funded programs and companies all around the world that are raising billions of dollars. At General Fusion, we need large amounts of capital, but really a fraction compared to what the rest of the industry needs in order to continue to move forward. We're on the cusp of some big milestones, and right now we're out trying to raise capital. We need bold new investment in order to keep the momentum and achieve some really, really important milestones, which will pay back large for us, but also the investors who participate at this stage.
You've mentioned that you've received funding from Canadian funding providers, but also some funding from abroad. Fusion seems to me like one of these great scientific projects and technological projects like space exploration that benefits from international collaboration. Can you tell us more about how international collaboration benefits fusion technology in general? Has General Fusion benefited from this international collaboration in any way?
Yes, fusion is a grand challenge and therefore requires a global effort. And even though we, in our latest machine, LM26, is based in Vancouver, we collaborate with partners around the world to bring together sort of the best thinking and expertise. And really, the basis of our science and physics comes from collaboration with experts around the world. We work with Canadian Nuclear Labs, as an example, around plant design and tritium R&D. Triumph helped us with fast neutron diagnostics. We're engaged with the U.S. national labs like Oak Ridge, Livermore, and Savannah River through the DOE's collaboration activities. We work with the UK Atomic Energy Authority as well, who is really the gold standard for fusion in national labs, and have a deep, deep collaboration with them over in the UK. So that's sort of on the science side of things. But in the market side of things, we have developed something called the Market Development Advisory Committee for General Fusion that helps us bring together global energy leaders on a regular basis. People like Bruce Power, Fortis BC, TVA, Duke Energy, Engie, and several others that help us align and build what utilities need. So we are making sure that our end customers are helping us build out our technology roadmap. We're not just doing fusion for science and physics, but we're doing it in a way that our end customers who are engaged with on a regular basis through this committee, they can finance, own, operate, and put power on the grid. Fusion's too big to be done alone, and collaboration is needed. And we spend a lot of time working with partners on the pieces that they can help us with.
Greg, I would like to end this conversation talking about the humans behind General Fusion. Behind any great company lies great women and men. Can you tell us more about some of the key persons behind General Fusion and what kept them going since the company was founded more than 20 years ago?
The thing that drives us every day as a company is the why. The prize for what we're doing is huge, not just financially, but from an impact perspective. There may be nothing on the planet more impactful than us commercializing fusion and putting virtually limitless clean energy on the grid around the world. Has just such a huge impact. And it's very challenging, as we've talked about, and with many decades of work behind us and others around the world, it takes a real strong why to keep pushing forward. And the base of our employees has been incredibly tight and long, with a lot of long service employees that have been at this and working towards this for a long time. Our founder, Dr. Michel Laberge, started the company 20 years ago with a welding torch and a vision, and created fusion reaction in a garage in Bowen Island. A really incredible beginning to the story that we are creating here at General Fusion. We've got employees that have been with us for 17 plus years. We have some employees that have custom license plates. One of our milestones in our machine, LM26, is 10 keV or 100 million degrees. We have an employee, his name's Curtis, who has a license plate 10 keV. And so, if that doesn't show you, or was sort of one little tidbit of commitment, I don't know what does. And really across the company, there are so many people like that, incredibly committed, and people coming out of industry that have worked in other power commercialization companies or clean tech companies, coming together on something that is such an incredible mission is such. I'm so grateful to be able to lead this team, and it's an amazing group, and we're making it happen.
Greg, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today about fusion. It's not the easiest topic to bring to a general audience, but it is a promising energy technology, and we are grateful for your explanations. Anything you want to add, Greg?
No, I guess, final thoughts are, fusion isn't a dream anymore. It's becoming mainstream because progress is being made and the timelines are becoming real for all of us. We at General Fusion, we've done the groundwork already. We're proving it works at larger scale now, and it's soon time for fusion to meet the grid. And a lot of people don't know, but General Fusion, Canadian company, is leading the charge on a global basis. And I'm really proud to be able to share a little bit today and hopefully continue the conversation sometime in the future as well.
Thank you for a wonderful conversation, Greg. I look forward to continuing to follow General Fusion's journey. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Sustainability Leaders. This podcast is presented by BMO. You can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. Press the follow button if you want to get notified when new episodes are published. We value your input, so please leave a rating, review, and any feedback that you might have, or visit us at bmo.com/sustainability leaders. Our show and resources are produced with support from BMO's marketing team and Puddle Creative. Until next time, thanks for listening and have a great week.
For BMO disclosures, please visit bmocm.com/podcast/disclaimer.